You are listening to KSG Podcast. This is a short, crisp, concise, exam-oriented, edited editorial for civil services aspirants. In this podcast, we are going to talk about the Tigray crisis. Source for the content is Neha Banka's article for the Indian Express. The World Health Organization (WHO's) Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has suggested that racism is behind the lack of international attention and interest in Ethiopia's war-stricken northern Tigray region, where millions of civilians are living in dire conditions. Tedros is an ethnic Tigrayan. Tedros called the situation in Tigray the worst humanitarian crisis in the world and questioned whether the lack of response from global leaders had to do with the color of the skin of the people. Tedros had said that the region was not getting the same attention from the world as the conflict in Ukraine was and suggested that the lack of attention may have to do with race. The conflict erupted in Ethiopia in November 2020 and humanitarian aid only arrived in Tigray in June 2021 after Tigrayan forces retook control of the region. Now let's talk about the conflict in Tigray. While there have been tensions in the regions for nearly 3 decades, observers state that they escalated in September 2020 when leaders in Tigray held local elections in defiance of the Ethiopian government. According to a Reuters report, these elections were considered illegal by the federal government, further leading to conflict with Tigray authorities. In November 2020, Abiy ordered a military offensive in the northern region of Tigray. His government claimed that the rebels, known as the Tigray People's Liberation Front or TLPF, a former ruling party in Ethiopia designated as a terrorist organization by the Ethiopian government, had attacked its army bases. Over the next year, violence would spread to other parts of the country. The conflict was a result of months of disagreements between the Abiy government and political leaders in Tigray who were opposing reforms pursued by the federal government. Abiy declared the campaign in Tigray a success after just 3 weeks of initiating it, when government forces took control of Tigray's regional capital Mekelle and installed an interim administration loyal to the federal government, as reported by the CNN. However, the conflict is far from over. A 5 month ceasefire between rebels and government forces shattered on the 24th of August 2022 after fighting broke out on the border of Tigray, with both sides accusing the other of initiating the violence. 2 days later, an airstrike on a children's play area in Mekelle killed at least 7 people, including 3 children. The TLPF accused the Ethiopian Air Force of hitting a residential area and a kindergarten, while the federal government said it was targeting only military sites, as reported by AFP. Now, what is the current humanitarian situation? According to a report by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, food security is expected to worsen in Tigray in the coming months. The report said that the humanitarian situation had significantly deteriorated in the region in 2022, exacerbated by a prolonged drought. The report also highlighted how, for the first time in July this year, a COVID-19 vaccination campaign was launched at Mekelle Hospital, making it the first COVID-19 vaccination in Tigray. But given the instability in the region, the vaccination campaign faced several difficulties, including intermittent power outage affecting cold chain maintenance, lack of fuel, limited communication and internet access, affecting timely results in reporting, difficulty locating IDPs in host communities, and low partners' participation. Tedros has stated during the address that the 6 million people in the region had been isolated from the world due to the ongoing crisis and had been under siege for the last 21 months. He said that while the Ukraine conflict had the world sleepwalking into a nuclear war, one that could be the mother of all problems, he believed that the disaster in Tigray was far more severe. According to a Guardian report, Tedros asked during the address, and I quote him here, "I haven't heard in the last few months any head of state talking about the Tigray situation anywhere in the developed world. Anywhere. Why?" Unquote. Now, why did the WHO chief make this comparison? The conflict that erupted in Ethiopia started in November 2020 and humanitarian aid did not arrive in Tigray till June 2021 after Tigrayan forces retook control of the region. Although aid had arrived, aid groups had said that it was inadequate to meet the needs of the millions who were stranded and displaced in the region. In April this year, the United Nations had said the region was facing severe shortage of food and essential humanitarian supplies following a truce between the Ethiopian government and Tigrayan forces. In the first week of April, UN had said aid had started arriving in Mekelle. This aid assignment was significant because it was the first to arrive by road. All previous consignments of aid had been delivered by air only, an exercise that is not only expensive but also limits the quantity of aid that can be delivered, according to a BBC report. Now, this is not the first time that Tedros has used his position to highlight the ongoing conflict in Tigray. According to Tedros, despite the severity of the situation in Tigray, there has been little focus on the circumstances that ordinary people have been facing since the conflict erupted in November 2020. In a briefing in April this year, Tedros had questioned whether race, black and white lives had anything to do with global attention and focus on humanitarian emergencies. That's it for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. To join KSG India courses and to crack the IAS exam, visit ksgindia.com. You can also get a PDF of this podcast on ksgindia.com. Thanks for listening and do subscribe to our channel.